Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
Good day, Wild Hearts. Shireen here. I'm your bookkeeper and QuickBooks advisor. Why do small businesses need to keep a set of books? Firstly, well-maintained books make it easier for small business owners to receive outside financing, as they are often the first and most important records required by loan providers and investors. Secondly, it also helps you budget for your business and prepare for tax returns. Don't estimate the importance not only to have a set of books, but for those books to be accurate. Call Shireen's bookkeeping services today and allow me to do your books so you can do life. If you want to know more about Shireen's bookkeeping services, go check me out at www.shireensbookkeeping.com and allow me to keep your books clean. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Friends from Wild Places. I am your host, Shireen Buerta, and we have some really special visitors today. So, Lewis, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate you for taking time out of, I know, your busy schedule. So, Lewis is the founder of Lovework Media. He's a videographer from Florida, United States. So thank you for joining us, Lewis.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Lewis, today I want to just chat and begin the episode by talking a little bit about the facts of whether or not we are in a recession or not. So many economists believe the strategy will trigger a recession this year, being 2023. But the NABE, which is National Association of Business Economics, forecasts they expect the economy to grow 0.8% in 2023. Based on the change in average GDP over the 4 quarters compared with 2022, that is down from 2.1% last year, but up from their 0.5 estimate in December. So that's just a little bit of facts on what we're hearing. But let's talk about it because I feel like there's a lot to discuss here. And more importantly, I think from different sides of the world. I'm from South Africa, Lewis here from Florida, US. It'll be interesting to hear each other's perspectives of whether or not we think that we're actually in a recession or not. So my first question is your thoughts on generosity in a time where we are all feeling the cost of living as it rises fast. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great question, and I think it's not one of those things that it's like a one size fits all, because everyone is in a different situation.
Right.
So I think it really all depends to each individual and the situation that they may be in. Mm-hmm. I think that whether we're in a recession or whether we are not, I think it still shouldn't play a huge factor on how we carry ourselves and the way we do business. Since, at least for me personally, business is about relationships. So whether we're going through a tough patch or going through a smooth patch, if we have a good relationship, we should be able to work through it in some way.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those questions that any direction, you can take it in so many directions. But for me personally, I try to just stay neutral and try to just be empathetic to those that I'm connected to and that I'm working with, and hope that they can do the same for me. But that's a mouthful. I'm not quite sure how to fully take that one.
No, you are so right. And you hit the nail on the head from my perspective. So everyone has their own opinions. And again, this is a safe space. So there's no judgment here. Your feelings and opinions are valid, no matter what they might be. So I agree with you. Times are going to get tougher. I believe from a South African point of view, we know that things are going to get worse before we see anything improve. But for me, does that mean I'm going to be stingy? Does that mean I'm going to hold back in just being generous? And what is generosity? Does it have to come in the forms of money? Isn't generosity different ways, shapes, and forms, from giving your sandwich to the person next to you that, might need food more than you did. You might have had breakfast that morning. They might have not eaten for the past day or so. Generosity comes in many different ways. You can be generous with your time. I can busy myself so much in my business that I neglect to take the time out to bless someone else, to smile at someone else, to do something that will help someone else have a better day. So, to answer that question, absolutely not. No matter how hard it gets, I definitely think that you should never stop being generous.
Agreed.
What do you think?
100%. No, I completely agree. I mean, again, like being an entrepreneur and being in business, it's kind of part of what you sign up for, right? Like it's not an easy path to take, but definitely just remaining true to yourself and remaining true to that purpose through tough times is really what tells you, whether or not it's really about it. And remaining who you are through that process is definitely part of the test, in my opinion.
I
So I
love that.
completely agree with you.
Yeah, I love that, Lewis. Yeah. So would you say that we're in a recession at the moment? What is your opinion on that?
To be honest with you, for me personally, I don't really feed too much into that because um, I feel like it's one of those things that even let's say if we are, right, whatever exactly that means, right? Like it's whenever there's trouble, there's opportunity. So like whenever there's, turmoil or something's going wrong or things, there's opportunity there, right? So I try to stay more on an optimistic and positive, try to keep a positive perspective where, yeah, it's tough, but where's the opportunity in this, right? Like what are we learning from this?
Yeah.
How can we use this in some way to better us reposition and adjust? Is there something here that we didn't recognize before? Is there a challenge here that we actually see in the market that isn't being met? Because I mean, at the end of the day, when we talk about economy and we talk about business, we're talking about people, right? If something is wrong in the economy, someone is not being met, right? Their need is not being met in some way, shape, or form. So for me personally, I always take turmoil and I try my best to look at it from a positive perspective, So whether we are in a recession or not, for me personally, I really don't think too much about it because I'm always just looking for opportunities to try to provide a solution. So the worse things get, the more solutions we should be able to come up with, right? So that's kind of my take.
Nice.
And that's the take I try to stay more focused on, right? Because if I start thinking about things I can't really control, like we talked about earlier, being an entrepreneur is hard enough. And for us to put those pressures of things that that are out of our control and that really come down to us as a unit, right? Like us as a people completely coming together. Instead of me worrying and being afraid, which then leads to scarcity and me kind of getting a bit more uncertain. No, this is a time for me to become more confident in what I need to do to help, right? Because to me, that's what it means. It means there's an opportunity to help and to create some kind of change that can bring us forward.
Nice. To get to a little bit of a quote that that I found about generosity. And I think it really, really hits home for a lot of people, and even for me. So the quote today is, "True generosity is an offering, given freely and out of pure love, no strings attached, no expectations." And that was Suze Orman that said that. Here at Friends from Wild Places, we use Buzzsprouts. I started this podcast to share stories from other business owners and to bring support for young entrepreneurs all over the world. When business owners start out, we have such a fire in our hearts and excitement to start our own businesses. But when things get tough, I want us to know that we are not alone. I feature nonprofits every month to try and make a difference or give a helpline to someone in need. Do you have a message you want to share with the world? Or maybe you just think it'll be fun to have your own talk show. Podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. To start your own podcast and get a $20 Amazon gift card, follow the link in the show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know we sent you and helps support our show. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Buzzsprout is for my podcast. It's a fantastic platform. I encourage everyone to use it. And this podcast and the meaning of this podcast, as I shared with you, is really to touch someone's life and to assist them and encourage them to keep on going. So if you like what you're hearing or you're interested in supporting me some way, shape, or form, you can go onto the website, which is friendsfromwildplaces.buzzsprout.com. That's friendsfromwildplaces.buzzsprout.com. And that helps us keep on doing what we're doing. So if you enjoy listening to me, just subscribe on the website. It's really important to know that as a business owner, it's always good to sow the seed of generosity. And it starts with you. And when you just keep on giving, it can only come back. So back to you, Lewis. I'm so glad that you sorted out and you came back online. I have a couple of questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Awesome. Okay. So first of all, let's get to the basics. Tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from.
A little bit about me. My name is Lewis, as stated, right? I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I moved to the States. Well, I didn't move. The family migrated to the States, like around 95. So I basically grew up here in the United States. I did not grow up in Florida. I grew up between the Bronx, New York, and Boston, Massachusetts. And I recently moved to Florida about 2 years ago. I was born in the Caribbean, and I'm not too big on the cold, so I had like over 8 years trying to convince the wife of why we needed to move somewhere warm. And we're finally here. But yeah, I am the owner and lead videographer of Lovework Media, and I also own Lovework Weddings, which is a wedding videography company as well. And we provide services in Boston, Mass, and in Orlando, Florida. So really, I'm a self-taught videographer and video editor. I did not go to school for any of this. I found myself at a crossroad in life, and I kind of just dove into it. And yeah, this is kind of what's led me down this journey, and glad to be here.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so I have to ask you, how did you get into videography and why?
Really, for me, I wasn't quite sure, right? Like in my late teens, early 20s, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my career. Growing up and being from the Dominican Republic, had that typical mentality of I want to play baseball, right? Because that's a lot of what we're kind of taught to kind of do and aspire to do. But as I was getting through the final years of high school and college, I just didn't really see that as a path for me at the time, especially with everything going on. I wanted to be more of a doctor, and I wanted to get more into medicine. And but that quickly kind of shifted when I started to learn more about the medical field. It was more kind of business than it was actual medicine, and that kind of discouraged me a bit and put me in a little bit of a depression, let's say, because I wasn't sure. I wanted to serve. I want right. My sister's a doctor. My other sisters are RN. Right, like it's part of what I felt like was in my nature to do. And I was really down for a period of time, and I came across Napoleon Hill's book called Think and Grow Rich. And in this book, he talks about when you're lost, to give of yourself. So I basically just looked up community television in my town, and I started volunteering in community television. One thing leads to another. That first year, I get volunteer of the year. I was, I just wanted to stay busy, and I was finding something that I really enjoyed, and coming from like the background I came from, like when I first learned people made a living using a camera, I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? Like for real, like people make a living using a camera? Like no way. Like it was just surreal. It was fun, it just felt natural. And the more I learned to use this camera, and then little by little start to edit and just find myself being of value in some way, and bringing some type of value in my community, and being involved, I started to see the connection of how the camera is really a tool to help bridge gaps in communication, right? Like the camera, it's there to help you capture a message, but if that message is captured correctly, and the story is told right, and the right visuals are applied, and then after that you can do certain things where, whether it's running ads, or if you are hosting an event and you can show this video that really helps to communicate your message. I just saw that as such a strong and powerful thing, and something that I really wanted to learn to do more and help others do as well. So that's kind of what got me into video, honestly.
That is awesome. And that's such a beautiful story. So I know that you mentioned to me that one of your target markets are nonprofits. Why did you choose that specific target market?
In particular, nonprofits, I feel like really resonated with me the most, especially those that work with like youth and work with underdeveloped communities and things like that. Because I was one of those kids, right? Like whenever I would go record events there and I see these kids and everything that these adults were doing to support these kids, and give them more opportunity, I couldn't help but see myself, because I was easily one of those kids, right? I was homeless for a period of time when I was young growing up. And it's just one of those things that right away I was like, first off, I didn't know organizations like this existed. I didn't know people would literally be like, hey, I want to devote my life and my career to working in these types of environments and helping to improve these situations. So right off the bat, to me, it was like, I want to follow, right? I can stand behind this, right? I can stand behind this person, and I can really follow this. And I just wanted to help. I wanted to find ways to help them continue to do that. Not only for them, but most importantly for the kids, right? Because the more we can impact the young mind, the more, the future gets a bit brighter, because those are going to be the adults walking around our community.
Did being an entrepreneur come naturally, or did you nurture it? So I always ask the people that come into my shows, so an entrepreneur comes naturally for some people. They don't have to worry about it, even becoming a business owner. They do it like this. They're successful and they just see their businesses flourishing. And then there's other people that actually have to nurture that side of themselves, that entrepreneurship, that business owner side of them. And so I like to ask and hear everyone's perspective and point of view on that. So is that entrepreneurship, did that come naturally to you, or was that something that you had to nurture?
I think for me personally, it was a combination of both.
Nice.
I feel like just it's one of those things that the environment you grow up in and just the like just your surroundings in a way, like you kind of develop entrepreneurship tendencies, right? Because you're consistently trying to survive in some kind of way, shape, or form.
Right.
But you're not sure what you're doing. You're just trying to survive, right? Like for me in particular, the word entrepreneur, I didn't learn what that was until I was like 19 years old. Like that's the first time I heard it at a networking event, right? Like I hear entrepreneurship and I'm like, what's that? I Google it and I'm like, oh, okay, I want to be that. Like I know that, right? Like
Right.
um, but it's one of those things that, obviously I'm forever a student. So, there's so many parts of it, especially depending on the kind of business you want to run and the kind of entrepreneur you want to be, right? Because if you want to be a solopreneur and you just want to do your own thing and or if you want to build community, so that's where the nurturing part comes in. And for me, realizing that I don't just want to do this for myself
Right.
and I want to be able to work with others and help build others, now that part doesn't really come natural to me because there's a lot of uncertainties and there's a lot of um, just areas that I don't have a lot of experience and so much knowledge in. And being able to now study and read books and make mistakes and, and then read again and then be like, okay, how can I do this a little bit better?
Get it right.
Um, Surrounding yourself with the right kind of people that encourage you and can see your intent and can give you that room for growth. So yeah, for me, I feel like it's one of those things where I've had the entrepreneur spirit, but as I've taken this journey, I've learned that without the right discipline and the right like with the right structure to be able to hone those skills, it can be it can take a pleasant experience and make it very, very complicating and not as pleasant.
Right.
So still learning to shape it and mold it accordingly and continuing to do so. And I believe that I'm probably going to be doing that until I die, pretty much.
Oh, that's
um,
great.
yeah, it is what it is, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I
No,
just want to keep learning and keep growing. And that's just what it is.
that's the secret. It's to never stop learning. It's to keep on improving yourself, no matter how old you get. Yeah, that's definitely the secret. So,
Mhm.
Lewis, here's another thing. I know being an entrepreneur and when you get busy into your business, it gets a little bit time consuming. So, what do you do to keep your tank full? So, what are the things that you do to take time out and to make sure that you stay happy and healthy? Yeah, mentally, physically, emotionally, everything.
Yeah. Oh, I can't say there's like one specific thing I do. I think it's more of a combination of things.
No.
Um, Really now just obviously, trying to make sure I make it to the gym at least 3, 4 times a week, right? That really helps. Speaking to my therapist, he's helped me understand the importance of that, right? Like, and the importance of allowing fresh blood to pump through your body and especially get to your brain, so that way you can continue to have that fresh perspective and be able to not allow those challenges that come with running a business to kind of overpower you, right? So just getting physically active and challenging the body and challenging the mind as it is has really been helping to um, to ease that.
Right.
Um, and on another part of that is just doing my best to eat, right? Remember to eat because it's one of those things where it can be hard. You get lost in time, things happen, you get caught up in the project, and next thing you know, hours go by, you haven't eaten, and the mind is so engaged. But the truth is, the body needs what it needs to be able to sustain that.
Yeah.
Um, so, learning to eat, not just eat whatever, but eat to nourish the cells and eat to nourish my body and give it what it needs to be able to continue to perform. It's
Mm.
kind of giving it the right kind of gas. It's like every vehicle has a specific kind of gas they thrive with.
Yeah.
You know, if you got to make sure you figure out what that gas is for you, and try to consume those things so your body can be, so you can be working in favor with your body instead of against it, which can really keep that tank preserve, you know, going.
Absolutely.
Besides that, really, I enjoy spending time with the wife, you know, taking walks and with my dog. And yeah, I mean, I like watching movies. I really, the two biggest key things for me right now, I would say, is just making sure I make it to the gym and making sure I'm eating properly, right?
Love.
Because I feel everything else in between is a matter of just, you know, doing what I need to get done for the day, and then giving myself a little bit of time, whether it's to listen to an audiobook, or just to lay down and watch a movie, or not think work, right? Like,
Right. Switch off the
but I
brain.
find yeah, definitely. But personally, for me, as long as I can make it to the gym and I can eat properly, I feel like everything else kind of finds a way to take care of it. Like, kind of seems to fall into place. And
I,
I always tend to keep a fresh reserve in some way, right? Because I feel like I'm taking care of the vessel. I'm taking care of the vehicle. If I can take care of the vehicle, right, like the journey and the road, we're gonna navigate through whatever we have to, as long as the vehicle is being taken care of. So that's kind of I don't know if to call it a secret, but that's kind of that's what I
of
do to keep
course.
myself replenished. And I can't forget to mention one last thing is really engaging with people like yourself. You know, some have told, I don't know exactly what I am, but some have told me that have engaged with me in conversations for a few years, that I'm not an introvert or an extrovert. I'm like a bit of a hybrid, right? So there are moments where I gain a lot of energy from engaging in conversations,
Right.
from being able to listen to someone and see how I can help, and maybe help them, or maybe me just listening is how I'm helping them, right? And then, hey man, this was great, thank you so much. That right there, knowing, like, it's hard to explain, but just being able to hear those words, or feel that feeling of, I help make this person's day a little better. You know what I mean? Like, that
Absolutely.
always, yeah, that always also kind of seems to give you this like rush of energy and excitement that just kind of keeps you going, you know, like.
It's true.
And I guess that's part of the reason why I enjoy so much working with nonprofits, because I'm surrounded by a lot of people that are really in it for the right reason.
Yes.
So it's consistent inspiration everywhere you go, you know, because that intent is pure.
Right.
Um, so you know, for me, that's why it's so important to work with the right people, because I'm kind of sensitive in that way where their energy affects me, you
Right.
know. So
Love
me keeping myself on check and doing my best to surround myself with people as well that are mindful of these things.
that. Love that.
But yeah,
Yeah, I love that. And I've said this before, but it is so important to, when you are setting up your schedule, don't forget about the taking the time to have lunch, to have tea. Don't forget about those times where going for coffee with your mom, or visiting, a loved one. Doesn't have to be a mom, can be any loved one, to take a break from your workday and to just do something that is calming and refreshing to you. But people can put in all this long, unrealistic list of all the things they need to get done. First of all, stop that. Pick 3 things that you need to get done in a day, and then fit in lunch, breakfast, tea, put your meetings in, put your one-to-ones in if you're a BNI member, put your tea with your mom in. You do not have to create such an unrealistic job, list for yourself where you can barely get to that, and then you tear yourself apart because you didn't get to any, all the things that you wanted to. So thank you, Lewis. I really appreciate you sharing that, because you've hit a couple of really, really good points with us today. She has been with us a couple of times. You might recognize her Her name is Tanya Scotece. So welcome, Tanya. It's so good
Good
to see you.
afternoon, or good evening, or good morning. Nice to be here.
Hey, Tanya.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Nice to see you.
You too, you too. So yes, Shireen, it was a little, it's rainy here in Florida. So just jumping on the Zoom box to meet with you both. So looking forward to it.
Well, maybe that explains our network issues we've been having today. Could be the weather in Florida. Who knows?
Okay. Okay. Shireen, you look great. You look great. I haven't seen you in a while.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You've seen the short hair. Hey, you have seen the short hair.
No, no.
No, it's the first time. Well, Lewis, I had long hair. That was, yeah. What can you say? Multiple colors. And then I decided to cut it all off for the summer and just enjoy the hot weather we get here in South Africa. So it seems that Tanya hasn't seen me yet. So it's her first time.
Yes, you look great. You look great.
Thank you, Tanya, for joining us today. So I have chatted a lot with Lewis. We've gone back and forth and really spoken quite a bit about generosity. So that is our topic for the day. We started with a quote that says, true generosity is an offering given freely and out of pure love, no strings attached, no expectations. And that is from Suze Orman. So now that you've got the basis of the topic today, I have asked Lewis this question already, but yeah, I do want to ask you a question regarding, now that things are a little bit tough, the world is in a little bit of chaos. And, you know, the professionals out there are calling it a recession that we're in. Specifically South Africa, we're struggling, and as I said to Lewis, things seem to be looking like it's going to get worse before it gets better. But regardless, please tell me some of your thoughts on generosity in a time where we are all feeling the cost of living as it rises fast.
Okay, so great question. So as I sit here, I have Makai, who I'm dog sitting. So you might see a golden doodle appear on video. So
Awesome.
I really believe, I truly personally live the philosophy of giver's gain. And when I think of giver's gain, what comes to mind for me is karma, like, you know, good karma. And sometimes having no expectations is difficult, because sometimes our ego or our mind is saying, well, if I give something to you, I'm expecting to get something back from you. But I think when we rise above, if anybody does any kind of higher being or universal thinking, whether it's religious based or not, the higher game, or the higher, let's say, I don't want to say motive, because there's not a motive involved, but I think the ultimate reward is just to know that you've done the best you can with where you are, and expecting nothing from that individual person or situation, but just knowing that the universe or a God or whoever and whatever anybody believes in is going to reward them for their efforts. Right. So I teach world religions in my funeral service classes, and a lot of the world religions, as different as they are, a lot of them have that common theme of generosity. So whether someone is actually religious based or not, I think by having that, you know, giving, like there's some cultures that do the tithing, which is 1/10 of an income. And even somebody that's on limited money, if they believe in that, they know that they're going to get that back in some shape, way, or form. Right. So for me, answering that direct question, Shireen, I believe it's truly about trusting the process. Right. And sometimes, you know, I like to listen to Abraham Hicks. That's one of my inspirational things to listen to. What I take away from their philosophy, it's kind of like when you're on a ship, like on a cruise or on a plane, and you look, whether, you know, you're on, depending on water or on the air, you don't see your destination right there and then. It's right. Trusting that the captain is going to get you to the place where you belong. but without actually seeing it. So I think when we talk about generosity, giving from the heart, giver's gain, good karma, tithing, whatever word we want to attach to it, I think the philosophical meaning is that we will be okay, and trusting the process, that if you've done your best, you will be okay. And that is, I think, my contribution to this topic.
Nice. I love that. Thank you, Tanya. And so for the listeners, just a reminder, Tanya is a professor at Miami-Dade University. Forgive me if I didn't get the name right for the university. But she is also, and please go ahead. I also want you to mention a little bit about Alzheimer's Association. I know that you're connected with senior placement as well. So you have many hats, and it's an absolute honor to have you again a part of this podcast, and also a wonderful friend.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Shireen. So my background, I am a full-time faculty member at Miami-Dade College. It's funny, Shireen, because in the States, so in order to be a quote-unquote university, we'd have to offer more than a baccalaureate degree. So more than a bachelor's. So we are under the college. We have come up from a community college, which is a 2-year degree, but we are now a college. So not specifically, we do offer more than the associate's degree, which is 2 years. So different places, right? Different faces. I know your podcast is actually called Wild Places, right? So it's different. But yeah, I am a full-time faculty member in funeral services at Miami-Dade College in Miami, Florida. And I also do my blessed work, which is truly my good karma work, which is I'm the matchmaker for families who either personally can no longer live alone or who have loved ones who can no longer live alone. So I kind of think of myself as Cupid, and no, it's not a dating service, but I'm the matchmaker between people and communities. And it's pretty much in the area of I would say South Florida, Broward and Miami-Dade County. And I also cover the west coast of Florida, which is Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte areas.
Love that. Yeah, thank you, Tanya, just for reminding the listeners. You might see her a couple of more times on the podcast. You are so special in my life. So my door is always open for you to come and visit. And now that I've met Lewis, the door is now open for Lewis as well, because I've gotten to know him, I've gotten to know his heart, and I'm so excited and very thankful to you, Tanya, for introducing Lewis to me, because I think he's got an amazing story, and I think his story needs to be told. So it's nice to hear his heart and his good work that he does with his videography. So thank you again, Lewis, for being a part of today's podcast.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So guys, we have already come to that part of the podcast where we're going to play a little bit of a game. So this game is agree to disagree. And I know you've probably played this with me a couple of times, Tanya, but I enjoy it because we get a little bit of perspective on everyone else's opinions about something that you might say is a given, but it's not always a given. So the first statement I'm going to give, you guys can either say that you agree with it or disagree with it, and then you can tell me why. So the first one is, and I'm sure Tanya will have a say to this one, but the first statement is, everyone should plan their own funeral.
I disagree.
I'm going to say I agree. Lewis, what about you?
I think I disagree.
Okay, so since I'm the only one that agreed, I'm going to tell you why I agree that everyone should plan their own funeral. I guess at the end of the day, I don't want to put my family members under unnecessary stress when they're going through a really terrible thing, which is grief. We all have to do it. Death is a real thing that we all have to endure. And so if I can lighten the load then I would prefer to try and plan as much of my funeral before I pass away, so that most of the things are covered, so that when it's time and I'm no longer here, that the loved ones that are left behind at least have a will, or at least have most of the things sorted and organized, and then they only have a few things that they might still need to do. But that's why I agree. Lewis, why do you disagree?
Um, Not that I have much experience, right? The closest thing I have to working with someone to planning something is that I work weddings, right? Like planning a wedding. It's like my instant thought went to like, do I plan my own wedding? Which we did. And there were so many things there that you don't know what you don't know. So it's just one of those things, like obviously you've never died before, right? So it's like you don't know what to expect going through this process. And it's just my opinion where it's important to be able to work with someone that has experience in a specific area and can actually help you understand and think about things that maybe you weren't considering. So that's honestly just kind of my take on my little bit of knowledge on it. It's just um, maybe consulting or getting some guidance as to what to do, since it's something that we may not fully know how to prepare for.
Good point. Okay, the mic is over to you, Tanya. Tell me why you disagree, or tell the listeners why you disagree.
Sure. So it's interesting. So as a licensed funeral director, most funeral homes in the United States especially have programs where people can pre-plan their own funeral or celebration of life or whatever it is that they want or don't want. And some don't have to actually prepay. So pre-planning and prepaying are actually two different conversations within our funeral profession. So when you asked the direct question, Shireen, the question was, should we plan our own funeral, right? And Lewis actually answered it from the notion, well, how do I plan something that I don't understand on my own, right? So I'll take it one step further. So even with resources, even with advocates for pre-planning funerals, pre-planning associations, in my personal opinion, to be able to do that, one has to come to grips with their own mortality. And they have to be able to understand that, although we know it, we may not want to face it. And not everyone is there. I mean, based on various situations, somebody can be faced with a terminal diagnosis and feel like, I'm just going to focus on living and I don't want to focus on my passing. And it's not even part of their equation. So in the funeral world, when we talk about pre-planning and having people walk through the process, it's great, as you mentioned, Shireen, because you can actually take away some of the burden, let's use that word, for family members, that are already going through grief, and you can say what you want and what you don't want. However, there are some religions that are not that keen on pre-planning. So I would say based on religion, based on culture, based on ethnicity, those topics may be taboo. And some people are very superstitious, meaning that if I talk about my funeral, does that mean I'm going to die quicker or sooner? So although it's kind of like a wonderful thing for everyone to do, but I don't think everyone is ever going to be at a point that everyone will do it for the reasons that I stated.
Right. Very, very good point taken. And I love the way you explain both sides. And yeah, they're both sides of planning and not planning, and makes sense either way. So let's move on to the next statement. Here's another one. Studying grammar is more important than practicing conversation skills. Studying grammar is more important than practicing conversation skills. I disagree. What about you guys?
I disagree.
I disagree as well.
Yeah. I think you might be brilliant with grammar and English, but at the end of the day, it's whether or not you get your message across, right? I mean,
And how relatable are you, right? How can I relate to you? How can I connect with you? Like, You're using
Exactly.
words I don't even understand. I mean,
Yeah,
I would say obviously having good grammar is important, and it's one of those things that, you know, being well educated and being able to communicate your message effectively and creatively is definitely important. Um, but just making a connection with a human being is what really it's all about, right? Why do you even learn to talk? It's to connect with someone else. So, you know,
yeah,
yeah, I come with you.
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's do another one. So 21 should be the legal driving age around the world. 21 should be the legal driving age around the world. I agree with this one. Tanya, what about yourself?
So most of the United States, we can get permits at 15 and legal driving at 16. So I'm going to say I disagree because I liked driving at 16 years old, and my daughter drove at 16, and I like driving at 16. So I would say I disagree.
Okay,
I'm with Tanya. I'm with Tanya on that one as well. I
right.
feel like definitely starting to get some of that responsibility and, you know, kind of building that awareness as to what's happening around us and our part in getting involved. Especially when I got my license at a young age, I felt like it made me feel like, you know, I had to compose myself a little bit differently because I had a responsibility. So I think the sooner we can experience some of that, maybe the better.
Yeah, and I get that. I agree with the fact that 21 should be the legal driving age around the world because where do I start? I mean, we've all been at that age, you know, we were 16, 17, 18, and we're not the most responsible people at that age, humans at that age. I think we're all still trying to figure out who we are, what we like, what we dislike. I think we're very prone to peer pressure. And so based on that, I think not only is it also very close to the age of them being able to drink alcohol, I feel like, okay, now we're giving them two weapons. You can drive a car and then you can drink alcohol. So I think it's very close. And at that age, I don't think there's a lot of good choices being made, and maybe not. Maybe, I mean, that's a very broad statement that I just made. I'm not saying all teenagers that age are like that. I'm just a little bit on the cautious side. So yeah, well, okay, that was a good one. So I think I think that's going to bring it to the end of this podcast. So I just want to say that there is a lot of people that are listening and that either get inspiration from your story or would like to reach out to you and find a little bit more about you, or if they have any questions about videography and how to start, or about funeral services. So where can they reach you if they want to reach out to you? Lewis?
You can reach me via email, lewis@loveworkmedia.com, or you can visit loveworkmedia.com and just go to our contact form, and that will go directly into my email as well. Whether it's a question in regards to video, like you may need a video, or whether it's you're looking to get started in video, that's another part that we um, don't shy away from, actually helping to educate others on how they can take their productions to the next level as well.
Love that. Thank you, Lewis. And Tanya?
Okay.
So as you know, Shireen, I don't have a TV and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is my hub. Feel free to, you can message me on LinkedIn. You can also email me. My email is Tanya, Tanya, 8828 @AOL.com. Again, that's Tanya, Tanya, 8828 @AOL.com. Those are probably the two best methods. But again, whatever I can do to inspire someone or kind of get them just seeing a different light, I guess is what I like to do, and just maybe presenting a different perspective. So as we all have our trials and tribulations, I always like to share mine both, because sometimes we feel like we're the only ones facing our own situation. And sometimes by reaching out or getting someone else's perspective, you can just kind of walk away from that conversation just feeling a little lighter, which I think is a good thing, on so many levels for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. You took the words right out of my mouth. So for me, I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you want to ask anything about me personally, or just my story or my business, LinkedIn is the place. But if we're talking about podcast, you can go onto the website. Once again, it's friendsfromwildplaces.buzzsprout.com, where you can download any of the episodes. You can also subscribe there. So if you want to support me a little bit further, you can more than welcome to subscribe. Otherwise, you will find Friends from Wild Places downloadable on all the platforms. And if you're on iTunes, you can leave a review there. You're on Spotify, you can leave a review there. I love to hear what you think. You can hate it, you can love it. Constructive criticism is so important, and I'm open to hear what you guys think. So on saying that, thank you so much to everyone listening. And remember, you got this, and stay wild. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.